ठीक है. So now simply they're stating over here कि how is basically impulse getting applied over here. So cricketer we have seen over here. So now the force applied then acts for a long time, the impulse is greater, so also is the gain of momentum over here, velocity of the ball, right? They're saying कि how does basically momentum is getting applied onto the ball from the bat, right, after collision. So the velocity direction changes, ठीक है, but still the conservation of momentum law says कि the total momentum before collision of the ball in the bat should remain same constant after the shot, right, after the strike over here. So when we want to stop a moving ball, such as a cricket ball, however, its momentum has to be reduced to zero, right? So an impulse is then required in the form of opposing force acting for a certain time, right? So imagine, have you tried catching a tennis ball or some, let's say, some cricket ball? Let's say if you are trying to catch a ball, so do you feel some, let's say, some sharp sort of an force on your hand when you catch it? So who has played cricket till now with your cousins, friends?
क्रिकेट नहीं, वो सर बास्केटबॉल खेलते हैं ना, तो जब पास करते हैं बॉल तो उस वक्त भी होता है।
Okay, so any sport in which you basically have to catch a ball. I believe any everyone of you had played some sports, which includes catching, let's say,
यस।
basketball or cricket ball. If yes, raise your hand. Hamza has played cricket. Ruba also did. Varda also did. Mashal also did. What about Maeve? Maeve, you haven't played any sports?
Not really.
Okay. ठीक है. So Hamza, जल्दी से explain करें what happens when you try to catch a ball to Maeve. Yes, Hamza. Hamza, are you here?
और आवाज आ रही
Yes, I can hear you now. Explain the scenario of catching a ball to Maeve.
है। तो जब होता है तो बॉल का मोमेंटम हमारे हाथों से ज्यादा होता है। इस
Yes.
पे आपको थोड़ा इफेक्ट फोर्स पड़ती है।
Yes.
ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन, जिस डायरेक्शन में बॉल जा रही है उस डायरेक्शन में फोर्स पड़ती है।
Yep. So this is basically you want to basically stop it, right? So your hand would apply a force, sort of a velocity in this direction, right? Instant velocity of your hands, right? And these are the masses of hands. So you want to basically make the velocity to be zero, right? Okay. So what happens as soon as the ball basically comes in your hand, okay? So you apply this formula, right? So your force is rate of change of momentum, right? So you basically catch the ball in very small time, right? Let's say in 0.001 seconds, right? And let's say the change in momentum will be what? It would be m of b minus basically vb minus 0, right? So this is basically an application over here. You can see it is divided by 0.001. So this means k your force would be mb times vb times 1000, right? Because what is 1 upon 0.001? It is equivalent to 1000, right? If you reciprocate and use your calculator, you will get this value. So this means that your force would be 1000 times the mass of ball times its velocity with which it is traveling, right? So it's going to be a huge force which your hand tries to basically overcome. And this phenomena is basically called impulse, right? If you try to basically stop a ball, let's say an object which is traveling at a speed, let's say VB. So, and it is, let's say you make the contact with the ball, you stop the ball in a time of 0.001 seconds. So your hand would basically face a force of 1000 times mass of ball times velocity of B. Let's say the velocity of B is 10, right? And the mass of the ball is, let's say, 0.5 kg, right? So let's find out the value of the force that the hand has to basically stop, right? So it's going to be 1000 times 0.5 times 10, right? So what is the answer which you're getting? It is 5000 newtons, right? So that's a huge value. So this particular phenomenon is called impulse, right? So if impulse is basically the rate of change of momentum in a short duration of time, right? So that is your impulse. If it makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If it makes sense, okay, what is impulse? And this example makes sense. Give me a thumbs up. It makes sense to Varda, Ruba, Maeve. What about Hamza and Mashal?
So
Make sense?
can you explain it again?
Which part?
The impulse part. That
So what is impulse? Can you explain impulse? Yes. So it's basically a force applied in a very short duration of time. Does that make sense? You can see here the time is 0.001 seconds. It's pretty small, right? So in this particular duration, you're applying basically your hand is applying a opposing force of 5,000 Newton. Basically stop the ball, right? Okay. So what they will do, we basically find out the change in momentum of the ball, right? So what is change in momentum? It's basically the initial momentum minus the final momentum, right? Right. So initial momentum is basically what the mass of b times the velocity at which it was traveling before it was caught. Okay, and the final velocity of the ball is basically zero, right? So we can just use this formula that is m mass remains same for both the cases, right? So your changing momentum of the ball is m of ball times initial speed of ball minus m of ball minus final velocity of ball, right? So initial velocity of the ball is I can take mb as common, right? Because they are both common in this particular equation, right? I can take this common over here, it's getting multiplied by the way. So this becomes initial speed minus final speed, right? So your momentum of your changing momentum of the ball is simply VB minus zero. Since final speed of the ball is zero, since it is basically stopped, right? Stopped by the hands of a catcher, right? So this is basically coming out to be this. We have fixed time to be, let's say, 0.001 seconds for an example. So 1 upon 0.001 is 1000, right? If you use a calculator, you get your answer, right? So if we just use some example values, let's say the mass of the ball, clear ball is 0.5 kg, and the velocity at which it is traveling is 10 meter per second, right? So what would happen? You would basically, it is providing a force, a value of 5,000 Newton. That means your hand is basically applying a opposing force of 5,000 Newton just to stop this cricket ball. Okay, so that is a huge value. Okay, so that is called an impulse. Make sense? Okay, good. Yes, Hamza? Okay, I believe it is clear to everyone. So this is just an application, right? So don't just find कि chem physics is boring, such equations पढ़े जा रहे हैं. So it is getting applied to everything, right? Whatever scenario you can think of, your concept are getting applied over there, right? Yes. So now we have the last case, which is basically explaining how is momentum basically getting control in this sport. So you might have seen this sport is called long jump, right? So it's sort of a long jump sports over here. The runner basically comes running and he jumps on the soft sand to basically cover a sort of a distance of the. Okay, let's say this is your sand. The jumper comes running, okay, and he jumps, right? And he jumps, he basically tries to land at a particular point. And this is your basically the length of your jump, right? And the greater it is, and basically that means you have won, right? But over here they use soft sand, right? They use soft sand. Can you explain the importance of using soft sand? How is it helpful in the landing of this particular, let's say, jumper? How is it helpful? There's a hard answer. It's pretty simple. Yes, Rupa.
Sir, so when they will use soft sand, so it will have less friction between the person and the ground. That's
Good,
why.
good, good.
So the
Yes,
person who is playing a sport will be able to travel a greater distance as compared to any other thing that would be used on the ground.
perfect. Anyone else? Good, Rupa. You almost got it there, right? So that is the exact reason which was basically required and it is written over here. So while any number of combinations of force and time will give you a particular impulse, the sting can be removed basically from the catch by drawing the hands away. This is basically saying that similarly, if you want to basically catch the ball softly, there is a technique in cricket, right? So you move your hands away, right? So you can watch the video of how do we catch a cricket ball, TK, which will explain, right? So similarly over here, they have used soft sand over here, which basically tries to reduce the impulse, right? So this basically reduces impulse. ठीक है? How? Because it reduces the force that is basically getting applied by the ground, right? So it reduces this force over here. It basically makes the landing to be soft, right? So the jumper cannot be basically injured in this particular sport if he's following a proper technique and the sand is soft, right? This is just simple application of momentum over here, and this basically ends of your chapter. So we have learned what is the relation of momentum with force. We have learned the rate of change in momentum, right? So we have defined momentum and its application, where is it used. We have basically derived the formula for impulse. Okay, that is this. And this basically takes us to the question answer.